Despite the massive success and popularity of the Spider-Verse movies, I still see a lot of comments online that go something like, "I'm so tired of Spider-Verse, I'm bored of all the multiverse stuff, they're overdoing it with the alternate universes," and so on. And look, I get it. Just because something works really well a couple of times or in a particular series, it doesn't mean it has to be forced into everything else. And I totally get why fans would want the multiverse to stay away from Insomniac's iteration in particular. It can be messy and convoluted and could risk ruining a self-contained, straightforward narrative that we have going in this series so far. The multiverse can come with a lot of baggage and leave too many loose ends. When you combine the general dislike of the multiverse being overused with the aversion to co-op and online that many players have these days, something I'll be talking about in a future video, it seems like a multiversal, multiplayer Spider-Man game is just something that nobody would really want. But I'm going to talk about an idea for one anyway. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button for more coverage and discussions on Marvel, Spider-Man and gaming in general. Don't forget to drop a like down below, which, if I haven't convinced you that this game would be a cool idea by the end of the video, you can change it to a dislike. Now, we already know that there's going to be, at bare minimum, some Spider-Verse Easter eggs in Marvel's Spider-Man 2, which makes sense seeing as Across the Spider-Verse already featured some Easter eggs for the game. We saw in the gameplay preview that the unfamiliar spider drones dot the open world as a side activity and seem to have some connection to the multiverse, which was confirmed by the content creators that got to play early. At the event hosted by Insomniac, they had props for these spider drones on display, which featured designs from alternate spider heroes. So it seems very likely that this side quest will tease the Spider-Verse in some way or another. I mentioned in my previous video that I actually prefer it this way, with any multiverse shenanigans being relegated to fun side content rather than impacting the main story, which already has a lot going on with Kraven and Venom. So yes, I actually agree with you single player and anti-multiverse purists. The main story of this much anticipated sequel has no need or room for Spider-Verse crossovers. However, that doesn't mean that this side quest couldn't set up a separate project or DLC. Imagine having something akin to Ghost of Tsushima's Legends mode, entirely separate from the main game, that allows players to team up as a group of 4 spider people to stop a multiversal threat. Let me explain how I envision this to work. When you load up the, let's call it Spider-Verse mode, you're met with a cutscene. Reed Richards has reached out to Spider-Man for help. When Peter arrives, Mr. Fantastic explains that the drones that Peter and Miles have found across the city in the main game are appearing due to tears in the fabric of reality, and each one seems to be linked to an alternate Spider-Person. He tasks Peter and Miles with investigating these anomalies, which opens up the online mode. You could have Peter Parker and Miles Morales from Insomniac's universe, alongside Miguel O'Hara, otherwise known as Spider-Man 2099, and Gwen Stacy, otherwise known as Ghost Spider, as the playable characters, each having their own unique abilities and powers. And if you really wanted to diversify the co-op gameplay, you could have even more spider heroes like Noir, who could use ranged weapons, Spider-Punk, who could employ music-based attacks, and Pav Prabhakar, who can use his bangle web shooters. Now, I'm not saying they have to literally be the versions we saw in the Spider-Verse movies. They could be Insomniac's own take on these characters, but the movies could definitely serve as inspiration. Players could roam around Insomniac's New York as the main open-world hub and take on random crimes together as a group. But the real fun begins in the Baxter Building lab, where you and your team access a sort of multiversal war table. Please don't roll your eyes, I know it sounds a little bit like Avengers, but stay with me. So this war table allows you to travel between other smaller areas. 2099's future New York, Noir's past New York, Gwen's alternate modern New York, Spider-Punk's London, and Pav Prabhakar's Mumbattan. These locations would not be as large as the main map, but they'd offer a lot of visual variety. Each one would have a short co-op story that ties into a larger connected narrative explaining why the multiverse has fractured. Each one would have a boss battle that essentially acts as a raid, side missions, random crimes to complete with friends, as well as collectibles and points of interest to find with exploration. Insomniac is no stranger to fun open world co-op, as this would essentially be like Sunset Overdrive with a Spider-Man theme. So are you starting to see the vision? Now bear in mind that this would be completely separate from the main Spider-Man series, as either an expandalone DLC or just a separate game entirely. And while it would feature the Insomniac Spider-Man, and they might mention it in Spider-Man 3 for example as an Easter egg, it would otherwise have no effect on Insomniac's universe as a whole. If you don't want to play multiplayer or delve into the multiverse stuff, this would have absolutely no effect on you as a fan of Insomniac's single player stories, beyond a brief mention of, hey, you remember that time we went to an alternate dimension, during an open world phone call between the Spider-Men. In other words guys, everybody wins. The co-op, multiplayer and Spider-Verse fans get what they want, and the single player purists bubble remains unpopped. I also want to add that this mode / game would not feature any loot or gear. The experience would sell itself without the need for an artificially inflated grind. You could unlock new skills and costumes while exploring these alternate worlds together with friends, and that is much more rewarding in and of itself than thinking about the next piece of gear that you need. So what do you think? Would you play a game like the one I've just described? Could this indeed be Insomniac's multiplayer project that we know is in development? Or do you think that could be something else? Let me know in the comments, drop a like or dislike, and subscribe if you haven't already. At the time of this video, we are just less than a month away from Spider-Man 2, so it's an exciting time. Have a great day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one.